Hi folks, and welcome to another episode of Rich Politics. Thank you for taking the time to watch us today. I really appreciate it. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Make sure you do share the videos with as many of your friends as you can. Also, don't forget we're on Twitter and on Facebook. Follow us and check us out on there. I'd really appreciate it. Well, today on the show, I got a very special guest with me. Jack Ross is one of the directors for Reason UK and also the Chief Operating Officer for Turning Point UK. And we spoke a little bit earlier about a whole range of subjects that I could mention here in the introduction video, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to go straight to the interview that I did with him earlier. Check this out. Really excited today because we have a guest on the show, a new friend actually, but someone who I've grown to admire a lot, the work that he does with Turning Point UK. He's the Chief Operating Officer for them. Jack Ross joins me now, all the way from Turkey. Jack, is that right?
Yes, Richard. Hi, it's great to be here. So currently I'm doing 2 weeks in Turkey so we can get around the US entry requirements so we can go and help our friends in America for the Donald Trump campaign. So very exciting stuff.
Well, listen, we'd be great to catch up with you on that to find out how it goes. Obviously, you've been following the Biden-Trump debates and his campaign. I noticed he was in Florida last night or this week, whatever it was, and he's out of quarantine. He's tested negative for COVID, so he's back on the campaign trail, isn't he?
Yeah, no, it's great news. Great to see him up and running. And really, I think he's the best president, not just for the US, but for the UK as well. We've seen the Democrats they've tried to suggest they're going to sanction Britain when we leave the European Union because of any sort of hard border with Ireland or anything which could infringe on the Good Friday Agreement. And it really seems that the Democrats are backing groups such as the IRA over the British people. And again, when America and Britain are historic old allies, it's quite worrying to see a potential president threaten the UK like this. Whereas Obama said the UK was going to be at the back of the line. Trump said the UK is at the front of the line. So for me, it's a no-brainer to support Trump because he has the best interests of Britain at heart.
How do you think he's doing? Because the polls are suggesting that Biden's actually ahead in the polls. I mean, of course, polls are there sometimes to be ignored by a lot of people for the simple reason Hillary Clinton was the same. She was way ahead in the polls, and look what happened there. So, do you think that these polls highlight, some of the things that are going on in the US right now, and whether or not Biden is actually winning the campaign at the moment?
I can't comment so much on US polls, but certainly in UK polls, I don't think I know anyone who's ever done a poll. I'm not sure if you know anyone who's done a poll. It's a very small catchment base. It seems like they go around the universities asking people, or maybe Islington in London. And a lot of the time, the polls, they haven't got it right in a very long time. So I'd be very interested to see who they are polling. Also, we have sort of the silent majority where people might be scared to voice their true opinions, but they're going to go and vote for Trump because of the liberal backlash that they might receive. And so I think we will see another Trump presidency or another term for Trump. And again, historically, I think it's only Nixon who hasn't been elected to his second term of office. And so if the trends continue, Trump will have a second term easily.
Well, I have to be honest. I want Trump to win. I think it's better for Britain, better for our country, for the reasons you've already mentioned there, Jack. And I think it'll be important for us moving forward when it comes to trading with the US as well. I mean, Biden is not really a big fan of the UK, from what I can see, what I've heard. So I'm really looking forward to the elections, and hopefully Trump will win.
Definitely. I think even with Biden too, you looked at what Obama did when he became president. He took the bust of Winston Churchill out of the Oval Office. I think that's very symbolic of the Democrats' relationship with the UK. So yeah, fingers crossed for Trump.
Yeah, definitely. Jack, tell us a little bit about Turning Point, because it's quite a large organization. You guys do a tremendous work. I mean, I know a lot about it because I've followed you guys for quite a while on social media. And I know that you're one of the directors for Reason UK with Darren Grimes and some others as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit in a few moments. But tell us, for the viewers who might not know about Turning Point UK, give us a little bit of background on what you guys do and what you actually do for that actual organization.
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Operating Officer. So I'd say outside of coronavirus, our main sort of focus is on universities and standing up for free speech and conservative groups on campus. It's very hard. Again, the left like to sort of pretend that universities are fair and balanced places for free speech. But in reality, conservatives get attacked on campus. I've been assaulted a couple of times. I had friends who've been assaulted. One of the guys, Oscar, our Sussex chapter leader, he had to be escorted out of a nightclub with a coat over his head because the local Antifa recognized him from doing a video with us where he interviewed Remainers about Brexit, and they were trying to attack him. I've had friends who have been punched, friends who had their rooms vandalized, friends who have nails put behind their car tires.
So
people
hang on,
cars.
stop, Jack, stop. So you're telling me students on campuses in the UK here have been attacked by the far left, by, real woke left people because of their conservative views. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Both verbally and physically. But you won't hear about it in the mainstream media. And a lot of the time, it's very hard to gather evidence of this because someone might walk up to you and assault you in a bar. As I said, with my friend having to be escorted out with a coat over his head, there was no footage of that, unfortunately. I've been spat on. I've had friends who've been spat on, but unless you wear a body cam, people, you can't record that. I've had a friend who's had a drink kicked out of his hands. As I said, mentioned before, people have been assaulted by Antifa. One of my friends was punched at the Jacob Rees-Mogg event in UWE Bristol when Antifa turned up and attacked Mogg. So it's fairly commonplace. Outside of coronavirus, these are weekly incidents. If you do a stand on a campus, you will be mobbed by a group of angry leftists, and their job is to try and make it so unappealing for people to side with you that they feel intimidated into siding with the left, because they know if they shout at you, say you've got to stand for 2 hours, they will happily stand there and shout at you for 2 hours because they know you won't be able to talk to any rational people. And it's not just students, lecturers. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay, Jack. No, it's fine. It's great. It's great. I mean, it's not great what's happening. I mean, do you think there's a level of indoctrination going on within our universities? I mean, you've mentioned, large groups gathering. Where's this coming from? What is the root of this, Jack?
So it's both I think universities are an interesting case because it's both sort of top down and also bottom up in terms of the students. There's lots of social ostracization for conservatives at uni. If they express conservative opinions in seminars, leftists will do everything they can to try and exclude them. And that might mean they're not invited to parties, they're not invited to nights out. And I know this, again, not so much because it happened to me, because I kept my views mainly to myself at university, but seeing it with other people saying, oh, don't invite him, he's a Tory, or et cetera, et cetera. So you see this happen to other people, obviously without them realizing my political opinions. You also see this at a society level. So you see like the Labour Society might partner up with, say, the Dance Society or the Music Society and do a joint event, but no one will partner up with the Conservative Society because they're worried about the repercussions from the left coming out and calling their society racist. So you start to see sort of social ostracization happening there. You also see it with student unions not giving funding to conservative groups and giving funding to left-wing groups. But also, as I said, from the top down. So most UK lecturers are left-wing. I believe it's over 70% of lecturers vote for left-wing parties during election time. And that means in seminars, do you really think that conservative students get a fair chance to debate? When you had one lecturer from Oxford tweeting out she resists the urge to kneecap white people, would any conservative sort of feel comfortable in her lessons when she's sort of preaching violence?
Yeah, what I find quite shocking as well, Jack, is the fact that they get away with it. If we said something as, if you're a conservative, right wing, not radically extreme right wing, but if you have centre right, views on politics, and you say anything about the left, they're quick to jump on you, and they're the ones who are quick to say be kind, the hashtag be kind and all that. The lefties seem to play in all that
politics.
Yeah, all that, but they're the ones who are the most nastiest people that I've met. I've experienced it here in Wales, and certainly with Welsh Labour Party, some of their supporters, and more so from Plaid Cymru supporters, the Welsh nationalists. The vitriol and nastiness is unbelievable. I mean, it really, really is. I've been threatened online, not to my face, because I think they probably wouldn't do that. But anyway, it's another story. But yeah, it does happen, and there is a sense within our universities that we're breeding a future generation, and they're being indoctrinated in a certain particular way of thinking, and that is really, really concerning. I mean, one of my sons is in college at the moment, and he's experienced it himself. He's not involved in politics. I think he's seen what I've been through. He doesn't want to know, but he tells me, that is what's happening on his campus a lot as well. They tend to get that, and his opinion doesn't matter, doesn't count. And surely, in an open society, in a democracy like ours, the great British public, we have the right to the freedom of speech, freedom of thought, and freedom of debate. And I think there's this kind of cancelling out people because we don't agree with their opinions. I mean, that is a growing phenomenon happening right now in the UK, isn't it?
Definitely. And certainly with us, we've noticed they'll use every and any tactic to try and get rid of you. For example, we did a stand before on Sussex campus again, and it was, again, they said it was slightly too close to the Islamic Centre on campus. They were trying to say we were trying to intimidate Islamic students. But we went in and said, how's this the case? One political organisation stands up for religious rights, including the rights of those who follow Islam, and leftism oppose religious rights. So why would we be trying to target anyone who we support? We don't target anyone, but they were trying to cancel us and say we're Islamophobic there. Obviously, we've seen it recently with Darren Grimes, where they're going after him, not for anything he said, but for something one of his guests said. And it's just absolutely ludicrous to see that, again, they would do anything to take out the people they disagree with.
Yeah, well, with Darren, actually, to be quite frank, Darren has been targeted, consistently, and from different, different people. I've noticed over the years, he's a great young man, and he's got a great brain on his head on his shoulders, I should say. And when I read some of the stuff that the police wanted to speak to him over, the interview that he conducted with David Starkey, I mean, in reality, he was the host doing an interview and acting in his capacity as a journalist, as someone's reporting some news. It wasn't what he said, it wasn't what he thought, but yet he seems to be targeted. And on this occasion, of course, this Friday, actually, isn't it? He's been interviewed by the Met Police, who asked him to give a voluntary statement. I mean, is this a case we're seeing now people who are journalists being threatened? Do you think this might be a case? If this goes any further, then it'll really add to the censorship that we're seeing in our media and press.
Well, definitely. I think the police has become a political institution, particularly the Met, because the Met answer to the Mayor of London's office. They don't answer to the Home Office. And so we're starting to see the policies come out of the Mayor of London's office affect the Metropolitan Police, whether that be going after people like Darren, whether it be going after protest groups or taking the knee. They have direct sort of direction from left-wing organisations, which is increasingly concerning to see. And also we're seeing only the people with the correct opinions or correct opinions are the ones getting promoted in the police. So you're getting leftists promoted to a high level, calling the shots, which is completely unfair for an organisation which is meant to be, or an institution which is meant to be unbalanced and fair to the British people and police everyone equally.
Yeah, certainly. And I noticed that Welsh Labour, Labour's leader, Keir Starmer, when he was asked about the whole thing with Darren Grimes, he said there has to be tolerance of free speech, but as a general proposition, there is a line. When people go over that line, it's right that it's investigated. He mentioned that on LBC actually this week. What do you think about those comments?
Well, I tweeted about it yesterday. I said, this is the Labour Party in opposition, and they're this radical. Imagine if they were in government and they were able to implement these policies, if they could censor who they liked and send police bully boys to go and round up who they like. Again, we're looking at re-education camps here. It's hugely concerning to see the leader of the opposition stand against free speech, and I would not like to see him anywhere near number 10. And this is a man, Keir Starmer, who they're arguing is a centrist. So if he is the most moderate person in the Labour Party, why would anyone want to see any other ones get elected? It's a huge danger to the UK.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think one of society's biggest challenges in the next few years is the idea that free speech isn't free anymore?
I think so, definitely. It's a tough one with free speech because obviously some people do have very extreme opinions and some people can say some very sort of hurtful things. But the only way to get around that is education. So educating people not to say these things, not to ban them as such, because when you ban them, it encourages people to say them as they want to be edgy, they want to be out there, they want their sort of reputation to go, or name in the press, that sort of thing. So you have an issue when you ban it. You can make some things trendy, but also if you actually want to take on extremism and intolerance, the only way you can do that is by letting people speak so you can demolish their argument. There's a reason white supremacy doesn't do well in the UK, because we can debate with white supremacists and point out the flaws in their arguments. We can debate with National Socialists and point out the flaws with extreme communists. But if we tell them, no, you're not allowed to say that and you'll go to prison or you'll be censored if you do say these things, it bolsters their support because people think they can't say these things because they must be true. The government's scared of the truth being told. So the only way to actually defeat opinions you disagree with or opinions which might be dangerous to society is by actually debating them.
I absolutely agree. And I think there needs to be more forums and platforms where this can be enabled, not just within our universities, but of course in society as a whole. Here closer to home in Wales, of course, for us, we have other issues that we're facing. We've got the elections coming up next year in May. And it appears that we have this kind of rise of Welsh nationalism that we're seeing happening, which is a concern. It certainly is to me, because what I sense and what I fear the worst is that we are sleepwalking towards independence, and an independent Wales would be the worst thing for Wales for a whole number of reasons I'm not going to go into on this particular episode. But another episode again, we can do that on. But, it really is a concern. And the language that the nationalists used are so anti-British, anti-English, if you like, that it really, really worries me that there is an attack on our union, on our Britishness, on our history. We've seen from the tearing down of statues. I know you tweeted this week about Nelson's column, the statue of Nelson on top of there. Good luck taking that down. This whole idea of erasing our history, our culture, and everything else. I mean, what is the end game here, Jack? What is the purpose of this? Why are these people so insistent on, changing our history? I mean, we've made mistakes in our history. We all know that. But we can't go back and change those things, but we can learn from those things. And I fear that we're taking away, bits of our history to suit ourselves because we don't like what was done in the past. I mean, what do you think about that in particular in the UK context? And of course, with the Union, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and of course, England together, do you think that there's a breaking down of the Union? Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, well, I'll answer your first question on culture. I think people are adamantly against Britain and everything British because they feel guilty. They feel guilty. They live in a privileged country, and they have, again, a good quality of life. Even the poorest in society, while there's still a lot we can do, by no means to improve their conditions, by no means are they the poorest in the world. And there is genuine sort of horrific things going on in other countries. And I think people feel guilty that they have it so good compared to other people. And rather than go and help people and bring them up to our level, they want to bring us down to their level so they don't feel guilty. So I think that's why they're attacking the culture, and that's why they want to destroy everything British, just because they have, I don't know, it's a guilt complex or a savior complex.
Well, we have white privilege, don't we?
Yeah, arguably so. It's again, white privilege is laughable in itself as well. They've just come out and said white working class boys are the most impoverished group in the country at the moment. And again, my home city is Portsmouth, and there's huge amounts of poverty in Portsmouth. It used to be the most heroin addicted city in the UK. And again, across the south, lots of people have been forgotten about. There's been a lot of investment in the north recently, but the southern coastal cities are starting to decline. They're starting to descend into alcoholism, drug addiction, crime infested areas, which is really sad, and because there's no national focus on it. And that has meant that there's a lot of people being forgotten about, and it's going to bite us on the backside in the future, because we're going to have this sort of uneducated, angry, downtrodden group of people who say we haven't been fully integrated into society. So we need to actually look how we can expand opportunities to these communities and give them a lift up.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because this week in Welsh news, Welsh media, certainly, BBC Wales reported on the BAME community and how they've been experiencing mental health issues during the pandemic. And I often find it that which of course is a concern. It should be for all of us, but they never talk about the white working class kids on the estates, on the streets, the rates of suicide amongst white males in Wales and in the UK. And those are real issues. I lost my brother at 35 from heroin. I grew up around drugs and crime and all that kind of stuff. And I went into foster care. I went into, to get my head together. I went to rehab. I was not privileged. I can assure you I was not privileged. I come from the streets. But I'm told by people that I am. In fact, I posted something this week on Twitter on unconscious bias training, which a lot of our MPs and some civil servants are undergoing some of this crap now, because that's what it is, in my opinion. And I put something on Twitter, and someone actually called me a racist because I didn't agree with it. And he says, "You don't know you're a racist. It's unconscious bias. You don't even know you are." And I'm like, no, I am not a racist. I accept people of all color, of all creeds, of all religions, of all sexualities. Whatever is your thing is your thing. I respect humanity, but yet they accuse me certainly of being racist. I mean, do you experience some of that?
Yeah, well, they're the ones who bring race into it. As you mentioned, they were the ones who said, BAME people are experiencing mental health. But you mentioned there's lots of white people, white working class people who have experienced mental health problems too. Why not say the country as a whole has been experiencing mental health? And then that's inclusive. But they're the ones who start dividing people into race, which means we're the ones who have to start answering in terms of those divisions which they've created. We just want to talk about people, and we accept everyone as the British people, but they're intent on creating division in society because that's how they get votes at election time. Certainly, I'd say in my personal experience and my friends' experience, people are finding it hard to get jobs at the moment because of diversity programs where companies are saying you've either got to be LGBT, female or BAME disabled to get a job with them, particularly things like the civil service or certain companies, internships. They're getting people for the photo op, which again I think is degrading to the people who get those positions, because they're constantly going to have over the head the rest of their life. Did I get this because I'm intelligent, or did I get this because they just wanted someone for a photo op? And obviously then you're losing a lot of good talent of people who would be good for the job. I'm not saying the people who did get it aren't good for the job, but people who are automatically overlooked because of the color of their skin, which is racism in itself.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the famous words, isn't it, of Martin Luther King, we don't judge someone by the color of the skin, but the content of their character comes to mind often. You talk about that here in Wales, in our context, certainly. If you want to get a job in the civil service, especially or in the Senedd, in the Welsh Parliament, there's always this question, can you speak Welsh? It's this, are you, or can you speak at least a little bit of Welsh? It's almost a compulsory thing that you have to have, because
imagine saying that in England, you have to speak English. They'd be out there protesting.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't. It's crazy, and of course, I mentioned earlier the question prior to that one was about devolution, about what's happening with the United Kingdom. We're seeing this division happening, on racial issues, on equality, diversity, all these things you've mentioned already, Jack, so wonderfully put. But do you sense that there is, we've seen the Scottish Nationalist Party, we know what they're about, Nicola Sturgeon, and of course, Ian Blackford, who, when he stands up to speak, I have to leave the room, to be honest with you, and come back an hour later, and he's still going. That's another story altogether, banging on about Scotland, and they don't represent the whole of Scotland. But I wonder what you think devolution is, the effects, because I think devolution is a threat to our union. These nationalist groups are, with devolved powers, are paving the way for independence. That's what I see happening. We must fight to keep our union together, because together we are stronger.
Oh, 100%. And again, I think we look at foreign powers, particularly the EU, has been really intent on stirring up devolution and essentially independence, because Britain's left the European Union. I think they feel bitter about it, so they want to try and take like Northern Ireland with them, or they want to take Scotland with them, just to sort of two fingers up at the British people for causing issues in their European Union. I think in terms of the British Union, it would be a huge shame if it broke up, because we have such a good shared history together, and it's been going well for Britain as a whole. Again, there's still places we can pick up, but Britain as a whole has been doing well in the Union. And I say this again, I've got Scottish ancestry, so on my father's side, his family, as far back as you can go, are Scottish, and they're proud unionists. And a large amount of people in Scotland, well, the majority of people are unionists, as the referendum showed. And it's just trying to stop this vocal minority from, again, all Nicola Sturgeon is doing is trying to create division so she can justify another referendum to try and turn the Scottish people against Westminster. Devolution, certainly local areas should govern themselves, but having a country govern itself within a country is hugely problematic. You look at the coronavirus lockdown procedures, both in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. I believe in Northern Ireland, they decided to close the pubs at 11 p.m. rather than 10 p.m. just to be different, which is fairly pointless for that extra hour. In Wales, as we discussed earlier, they want to stop tourists coming into Wales for no apparent reason other than to just stir up sort of anti-English sentiment, maybe to justify a referendum in the future.
Yes, and our First Minister, Mark Drakeford, has been very good at that, because the rhetoric sometimes he's talking about shutting borders. Well, firstly, you can't enforce that. It's impossible. He's going to put every police officer available, on the borders of Wales. I mean, it's some of the stuff sometimes, to me, is just ridiculous. I call him the emperor down at Cardiff Bay, because, he thinks he runs the whole of Wales. Well, in reality, there is a government there is a parliament there. We've got a parliament within a parliament. We don't really need it. My ambition is to abolish the Welsh Assembly. I want to get rid of it. I'm saying we should have one government, one NHS, one education system. We've got 40 MPs already representing us. We've got 60 in the Senedd, which we don't need. They want to increase it to by another 30, taking it to 90 for a population of 3 million people. And the Welsh nationalists will argue, well, we want independence, more powers, more politicians. Based on the fact we got 3 million people, we're already overrepresented politically by politicians. When you look at other countries that they often use, Plaid Cymru will speak about Norway being an example of an independent country, but the figures in Norway are not the same as they are in Wales, are they?
Certainly not. No, Wales has a population of 3 million and Norway has a population of 5 million. So that's an extra 2 million people. Not only mentioning that, Norway has oil reserves in the North Sea, obviously large fishing industry. And Wales, while it does have coal, that's not enough to sustain an independent country. And again, it's a sizable amount of the Welsh population is elderly as well. So there's a lot of sort of dependence on sort of working people, which is very hard to support if they did go. independent. I think it's important as well, when you're looking at countries, whether it be sort of Scotland or Wales, in terms of devolution, has life actually got better for the Scottish or Welsh people since the parliaments have been devolved? Again, I know certainly Scotland, that's most addicted country in Europe out of everyone. So that's not got better. And that's having localized support or supposedly localized support to help them. Again, having been in Cardiff as well, I've seen there's huge levels of homelessness, huge levels of addiction as well. And for your parliament is in Cardiff, and you think people would actually care about the Cardiff people, if not the rest of Wales. But it looks like your politicians are just turning a blind eye and raking it in for some sort of trumped up idea of independence. They can call themselves king of a country.
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely, things have not got better. 2 decades of devolution here in Wales. You know, it was a Tony Blair project, 1997. Of course, he wanted to be the president of the European Union, as we know. Yeah. He had great ambitions for that. And the reality
Tony Blair, he won't have done it to benefit the people of Wales. He would have done it to ensure that Wales remains run by Labour, which it has. It's the last sort of major Labour stronghold in the United Kingdom. That's the only reason he did it, not because he cares about Wales at all.
Absolutely. I agree with you entirely. Well, Jack, listen, we're out of time. We've covered a lot of areas. I wish I could talk more. So much to talk, especially on devolution, because obviously it's a big thing for me here in Wales. But I always ask our guest a question at the end. If you could sit down with Boris Johnson and tell him one thing, what would it be? I put you on the spot now, and I...
Yeah, I think it would certainly be, don't listen to Twitter. It's not representative of the British people. So it really irritates me at the moment that the government is taking sort of Twitter storms into account when they're deciding policies. It's only people interested in politics or have careers in politics who are on Twitter, or mainly left-wingers. Most ordinary people use other platforms and they aren't on there because it's so left-wing. So please just disregard what Twitter's saying and actually speak to the people and find out what they want.
There you go, folks. You've heard it from Jack Ross himself from Turning Point UK and Reasoned as well. Don't take Twitter literally, as we say in Wales. It's not reality. Jack, thank you ever so much for being with me today. I hope you can come on again. I'd really appreciate it.
Definitely.
And we'll talk about some more stuff. And I hope you get to the USA okay. And I look forward to speaking to you very soon, my friend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Take care now. Bye-bye.